So what I've done is I've created a hypothetical terrain, and this is in a program called View 11 Infinite. And this is it's kind of like a hill shape. So over here it kind of gradually kind of just slopes down. So this part here, this is the top. And then it just gradually kind of slopes down here. There is some undulation, other things going on. And this is pretty common, which you'll see in terrain. You'll see maybe little pit holes here and there, maybe a little bit of flat area. So I try to make this as realistic as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rotate this around just so we can study what this looks like in 3D. You can see we have kind of a side slope going on here. We don't really know what percentage this slope is, but it kind of slopes down like this, right? Going to look back here. We're not too concerned about the backside. We're just going to call this a snippet of terrain. And what we're going to try to do with this terrain is we're going to try to grade in something flat here. So in our hypothetical terrain, we're going to say the client wants us to put something in here, maybe a tennis court or something, who knows what they want. But basically we have to grade in something flat in this area here. So one of the things that you may hear a lot is to take a section. So what I'm going to do is go to plan view real quick. And I'm going to drag my cube into here and unhide it from render. And I'm going to try to take a section. So in my perspective view here, I'm just going to back up a little bit. I know I have a little bit of the terrain sticking out here, which is okay, because I'm not too concerned about that little end there. And I'm going to try to take a section. So I'm going to click off, and I'm going to zoom in. And there's our section. And we can see from our section that it has pretty close, consistent slope. So the question is, how do we grade in a flat area just from looking at this in section view? So we're not too concerned about looking at it in contour view right now. We're just looking at this purely from a 3D point of view. So we've taken a slice through this terrain and we want to grade in something flat. So let's just say that the client wants it, I don't know, right here. Or maybe we'll put it just a little bit higher. Maybe somewhere like this. You're probably wondering, why am I picking this spot? Well, what I'm really trying to pay attention to is my cut and fill here. So I want to make sure that as far as my cut goes, that I have equal amounts going on here. So all of this right here, I'm going to have to cut this out. So all of this will have to get cut out just to make this area flat. And then this area over here, I'm going to have to fill this in with earth. And then there's going to be some sort of slope thing going on here. So this will all be filled in. And what I actually probably want to have is more cut than fill. And the reason why is as you move this earth, the air gets inside the earth, the soil particles, and it doesn't compress as good. So maybe what I really want is for this to come out a little bit more this way. Like that. And then I'll have just a little bit more cut here. So it'll be something like this. Well, pretty close to something like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into the terrain editor. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this Boolean difference thing. Just going to click on that and just ungroup the objects. And I'm going to right click on my terrain and I'm going to go to edit object. So I want to study this here. So we can kind of see from the terrain coloration what the contours might look like. We can see that up here that this is the high point, and we can kind of see an elevation band going across there. So what I'm going to try to do with this tool is I'm going to try to grade in a flat area. So I'm probably going to use the altitude tool. And I'm going to pick an altitude. So this is, what I'm going to pick is kind of like that middle area, the area between cut and fill. And maybe I'll pick, I don't know, this right here. Let's try that. Decrease my brush size. And I'm just going to do the best I can to make it a square area. It's not going to be perfectly square, of course. Maybe I'll increase the flow a little bit so this goes a little bit faster. So right now I'm just cutting into the bank. Kind of see that a little bit from this view. I'm cutting into the bank. I don't know how big this area is going to be. I'm just cutting into the bank just so that we can see what's going on here. We can see from those triangles, the mesh surface, how it's being changed. So I'm going along the bank here. I'm cutting into that. One thing that this software program can do that, of course, normal contours, well, the way that we see contours can't do, is create cave spaces. So I just have to be careful I don't have any of those. Now over here I'm going to try to create a fill situation. You'll see the software does this very, very easily. Zoom over here just so that we can see. You can see from that mesh surface how it's filling in the terrain. So I don't know how big we want our building pad or our, I don't know, tennis court we're trying to make here. In our hypothetical situation, maybe I'll go out just a little bit ways. One thing that Vue can't do for you is do really refined grading. You can't make this a perfect square. It's more of an artistic program. You just kind of have to just sketch it in. But it's a great tool for just being able to see how grading works. Alright, I would say that that's pretty close. We're not perfectly flat up here. Maybe we have some cross slipping going on, which is normal. See how that grows there on the sides. I'd say it comes pretty close. Maybe you want to come out just a little bit further over here. Let's do that. Maybe it's going to be a really big building. Whoever lives here owns a mansion or has enough money to build a mansion out here or something. Who knows? Almost got most of this filled in back here. Maybe I'll cut a little bit more into the bank back here. Not exactly a perfect square. So we got a little bit more fill going on this side. You can kind of see that compared to what we had before. Maybe I want this to be a little bit more squared out like this. That comes pretty close. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK to that. And we can kind of see that in our terrain. So let me go ahead and zoom in here. Let me render that out just to see what it looks like. So this is kind of what it looks like in 3D. Kind of looks like a table with some tablecloth draping off the side or something here. So we can kind of see that fill that's going on around here. We can see that we kind of cut in the bank back here a little bit. And we kind of see the transition points going on here. It kind of slightly follows the grade that goes across this way, wraps around there, kind of cut in the bank back here a little bit. And we transition over here to fill. So somewhere in here is the no cut, no fill line. The area where there is no cut, no fill, there's probably like a thin line that goes across here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take another section through there because I want to see what I've created, and hopefully my cube will be sitting where it needs to be sitting at. And hide that from render. And from the render preview over here, it looks like it should be sitting right along that middle. Let me just do, yeah, I think it's going to be right along there. Alright, so let me go ahead and take a slice through our terrain here. And hopefully it gets a good portion of that. And I'm just going to look at it from sideways view. So now we can kind of see a little bit what happened here. So it looks like for this particular area I have mostly fill. And there is some cut going on here. So cut is usually denoted with red. So I can tell that, well, let me draw first in green our existing terrain surface. So our existing terrain surface was probably something, I'm not drawing this very good, it was probably more like this. Apparently I have some tracing challenges here. I think you guys could pretty much use your imaginations here and figure this out. Alright, so I think you guys pretty much get the point where that existing terrain was at. And remember, with existing section lines, you want those to be dashed. So I'm just going to pretend that those are dashed. And then this over here, this is our cut. I actually do have a straight line drawing tool, I should probably use that. So this is our cut right here. Goes out to right about there. And then our fill is this stuff over here. And it actually goes down a little bit more, down to there. Wouldn't go too much off of this line and that top line too much. That's just the way that Vue rendered this. So how accurate it is questionable. So all of this is fill, and on the other side, all of this is cut. And that no fill, no cut line that I was talking about earlier, that's going to be this thing right here. That's the no cut, no fill line. Now, sometimes you hear about something called grading extents. And grading extents means your grading goes up to here. So basically your contours tie back into existing grade here. So that's the extents. And then remember, if you recall in plan view, it looks like a series of dashes or something like this. And then you have your existing contours that looks maybe something like this. And then it ties back into here. Goes back into existing. I have this actually the other way around. So we'll say that it goes like this, and then back here is cut. For the sake of discussion, we'll say that it meets back over here, and then that's the extents. So now that we've kind of done this in 3D and we can kind of visualize what we're trying to do here, let's try to do this with contours. And when we're looking at contours, we're looking at it in plan view, so we're looking at a 2D representation of what we're trying to do in 3D. So we just did this in 3D. We created a flat building area. We created, I'm going to call this a building pad, a level area. And we did this in 3D. This is how we would see it in 3D. Now we're going to try to do this with contours.